Okay, so I'm trying something new. Last year, I realized I was not reading very much for pleasure fiction. I was mostly reading just parenting books and personal development books. And so I decided that in 2024, I wanted to read more books just for the pure enjoyment of reading books. So I wanted to share, because I'm always looking for good book recommendations. I figured others were as well. So I wanted to share some of my favorite books. I read 7 books in January, and I just wanted to kind of share a little bit about them. This was my absolute favorite book out of all the books that I read in January. It's a Japanese best-selling book that was translated into English called What You Are Looking For Is in the Library. And it's by Michiko Aoyama. And something that makes or breaks books that are translated, especially Japanese books, is like what is actually the nuances that are translated in there. This is an excellently translated book. It is a series of short stories about people who are all missing something in their lives but don't really know how to pinpoint what it is. They go to the same library. Their lives are all intertwined, which is really cool. But they go to the same library. The librarian gives them book suggestions based on the subject that they're interested in. But then she also gives them like an extra book. And that book is what ends up showing them the piece of life that they're missing. And it's very easy to read because you're reading one person's story at a time. So they're just short stories. Basically, the chapters are each individual person. Just very clean, heartwarming type of story. And I was really hoping that like they'd all be intertwined and wrap up neatly at the end. And they did. And I love a good ending. So it's like a 5-star read for me because it had a good, fresh ending. I'll have a list of all the book titles in the comments if you want to find the books yourselves. And they're Amazon affiliate links. So if you purchase the book, that money goes directly to helping our family do what we do, which is raise adopted children and just live. My second favorite title of January was The Lost Bookshop. This book is by an Irish author. Her pen name is Evie Woods. And I am definitely going to look up other books that she's written because this one was really, really good. Because it's set in Ireland, there is some language. And I also want to give it a trigger warning. It does have the topics of domestic violence, alcoholism, and being institutionalized for like hysteria back around the turn of the century. The previous century, not the most recent one. I think it handles these topics really respectfully. I appreciate the fact that she helps resolve some of the trauma the characters have gone through. Trauma resolution is very important to me. And it does have some language in it, but overall, I thought this was really, really a quick read. Very interesting. And it does have magic in it, but it's a very kind of unique magic. I really, really enjoyed reading it. I did read a parenting book. I finished this. However, what I'm going to do is be going back through it. This is a great book if you're looking to kind of break the cycle of reactive parenting. I guess that's what the subtitle is. But the idea is each chapter, she has like a week's worth of mindfulness activities you work through yourself as a parent. And so I need to go back through and work through all those. But Raising Good Humans was a really, really good, very interesting read for me. I also finished 2 books in January of the Robert Jordan Wheel of Time series. I am only going to include book 5. I finished book 4 in January, but I started it in December. But I did finish book 5 all in January. And I have moved on to book 6. I feel like book 5 is my favorite so far. Lots of character development, very interesting things going on. This is an entirely new fantasy world for me. I originally read the very first book back in high school under a dare. Someone dared me that I couldn't read the entire book in less than 24 hours and retain the knowledge of the characters and things. So I did, but I didn't really do anything after that. And so it's been kind of on my radar as something that would interest me. Like it was one of those sort of when I have the time things. And my husband decided that I didn't need to wait until I had the time. He just got me the first book and I've been hooked ever since. So I'm reading into book 6 and I'm really enjoying it. Now the other books I don't have to show because I got them on Kindle. I'm using Kindle Unlimited right now because even though I have limited eyesight in one eye and difficulty reading, I found that on Kindle I can change the font and the size of the letters to actually help me read easier. So I've been blazing through books on Kindle now. So I read 2 books from one series that it's The Court of Shadows was the first book, and then I read the second book as well by C.N. Crawford. And those were recommended to me by a friend because she knew I liked fantasy. And she was like, this is dark fantasy. Like, I'm just going to tell you that. And I was like, that's okay. Like, I'm kind of like a closet zombie fan. I love zombie movies, zombie genre, zombie comics. So I was like, a little blood and guts is not going to like scare me off. Also used to be a vet tech, so gore doesn't really bother me. It has a different meaning when you've been in the surgical suite. So I read the first book and the second book quite quickly. It's a very addictive type of read, different kind of fantasy world, very interesting concepts. And the main character is very, very relatable. Just I would probably give it like 3 out of 5 stars just because it's like something I could live without. However, and it's got kind of like PG-13 rated language in it and some, some other materials. But it was addictive enough that obviously I went on to read the second novel, and I'm into the third novel. So I would say like it's a 5-star in addictiveness. It's a 3-star in like core literature that you would want in your life. And then the last book that I read was Keeper of Enchanted Rooms, and I read that on Kindle as well, and it is written by Charlie N. Holmberg, and she may be my new favorite author. She writes incredibly clean books. It looked like maybe she was LDS. It said she had graduated from Brigham Young, and I just really like her writing style. I really like the characters she developed in the book. I was super invested in the ending. I wanted to know how things were going to end. I've moved on to the second book in that series. She writes an entirely new magical world where people have different magical tendencies that they inherit. And there's just, it was so unique and different enough that like, it's probably like my third favorite out of everything that I read. And I'm definitely excited to read more. She has quite a bit of books out on Kindle Unlimited, so that's probably going to be a lot of what you're going to see me reading in February. But I'm going to link everything, and I would love to hear what you're reading because I'm always looking for new things. Like obviously, if you follow anybody on Instagram who talks about books or whatever, like there's these like core novels that everyone loves and they're always talking about, and they like fangirl and go get them at midnight or whatever. But I like the sleeper stuff. I like the little things that nobody else knows about. Obviously, like, who hasn't heard of Robert Jordan at this point? But I like the stuff that sometimes falls in between the cracks. And so if you have something that you're like, oh my gosh, Naomi, you would love this, I would love to hear about it, because I am reading for self-care and self-preservation, but I am super interested in that. I also did read for personal development. I read Atomic Habits. It's actually a reread for me. All I was doing was basically creating my own Cliff Notes version of it. So I'm done with that as well. So that was my January. How was your January?